You may begin, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this regular meeting of the University of Louisville Board of Trustees. I will now call the roll. Mary Nixon, I'm here. Scott Brinkman.
Here.
Randy Bufford.
Here.
Raymond Burse.
I'm here, but for some reason my camera is not working.
Oh, darn. John Chilton.
Here.
Sabrina Collins.
Here.
Al Cornish.
Here.
Diane Medley.
Here.
Diane Porter.
Here.
Jim Rogers.
Here.
David Schultz.
Here.
John Smith.
Here.
Having determined the quorum present, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd also like to take a minute to remind everybody that unless you are speaking, please put yourself on mute. All right, so as chair, it is my responsibility to remind all members of the board of their responsibility to avoid conflicts of interest and any appearances of a conflict of interest. Each member's received the agenda and related information for this meeting. If any board member knows of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before the board today, please identify the conflict or appearance at this time. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the agenda. The first item of business is the approval of the consent agenda as listed. Please call out if you would like to discuss any of these items individually. Hearing none, may I have a motion from someone to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? Motion carries. Our next item of business is approval of revised bylaws, which has previously been approved by the governance committee, but requires a roll call by the board. As you might recall, the revision before you is pretty much housekeeping in nature and provides consistency across the board's bylaws and the spending policy. Are there any questions before I call the roll? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the revised bylaws?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? I'll now call the roll as required. Please signify in the affirmative or negative. Scott Brinkman,
Approved.
Randy Bufford,
Affirmative.
Raymond Burse,
Aye.
John Chilton,
I approve.
Sabrina Collins,
Affirmative.
Al Cornish,
Approve.
Diane Medley,
Approved.
Mary Nixon, aye. Diane Porter,
Yes, approved.
Jim Rogers,
Aye.
David Schultz,
Approve.
and John Smith.
Approve.
The ayes have it. Motion stands approved. Our next item of business I am thrilled to bring before you, which is the revised memorandum of understanding with the foundation. Scott, would you brief the board?
Yes. Yes. I'll hit my camera too real quick. Thank you, Mary. As the board has previously seen, the primary purpose of this amended MOU is to create a single document rather than multiple documents to govern the relationship between the foundation and the university. After thoughtful and robust discussion between members of this board and administrators of each entity, we have agreed on the document before you. Madam Chair, I move the adoption of this new MOU as described.
I obeyed myself and muted myself. Okay, so we've got a motion from Scott to approve the MOU as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? Motion carries. All right, our next item of business is the approval of a new procurement regulation, which you've seen multiple times. Scott, would you brief us on this as well, please?
Certainly, thank you, Mary. Much like the MOU we just approved, this regulation has seen multiple iterations and has been previously reviewed by the board. This proposed administrative regulation and associated procedure provides the university with the opportunity to engage in a contract with a member of the teaching or administrative staff of the university beyond compensation if it is determined to be in the best interest of U of L. Again, after thoughtful deliberation with trustees and members of the university administration, we have settled on the document before you. Madam Chair, I move the adoption of this new regulation as described.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
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 Any opposition? Any abstention? Motion carries. Like to thank Scott. These were two pretty onerous documents to get through. And in his initial role as the governance chair, he did a brilliant job. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much.
Our next item of business is the approval of a new or an HVAC upgrade for the College of Business. So Dan, would you brief us, please?
Yes, ma'am. We're requesting permission to proceed with an upgrade of our HVAC system in a section of the College of Business to address some humidity issues. It's about $1.7 million. We do have the funding identified in hand. With your permission, we will go out with bid documents, and within the bid documents, we will probably ask the vendors for potential lease purchase arrangements as well. So we will either fund this from existing cash or lease purchase it based on if those terms are more favorable. Any questions?
I guess, Dan, I have one question. This sort of seems to be a deferred maintenance item. And I think it might be helpful at some point, since we've got some aging buildings and probably have other issues like it. Maybe the best time to do it is when we go through what we present to the state. But to brief the board on, what really the total of deferred maintenance we have out there. Would that be something easy
Yes.
to do?
We'd like to do that, and we'd also like to share with you some thoughts we have in terms of being able to help fund that.
Okay, super. Look forward to it. Okay, may I have a motion to approve the HVAC upgrade?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposition? Any abstention? Motion carries. Our next item of business, again, this is to you, Dan, is an approval of an amendment to the university's retirement plan. Would you please brief us?
Yes, ma'am. Jake, would you mind putting the PowerPoint up for just a second, or the section of the PowerPoint? We are asking for the board's approval to amend our retirement plan. It's been amended a couple of times over the last several months to help us with the budget. It's currently at 2.5% base, 2.5% optional, but we're requesting permission to increase the base to 6%. And the reason why is when we built the budget for the current year, we tried to build enough flexibility into the budget to meet unforeseen events such as state reductions and decreases in state appropriation, decreases in tuition and fees that were greater than expected, and also other unforeseen COVID-related costs. And we built that flexibility using two key tools. The first of which is we reduced the employer retirement contribution from the 7.5% to the 2.5%. The base changed, the optional stayed the same. The second thing we did was we required units to hold back 5% of their general fund. We called it a contingency account, to hold those back in case, again, for example, the state reduced the budget. And we also made a commitment to the campus to revisit the budget and the financial status at the end of December and reevaluate both these strategies, either good or bad. We were going to do something with them. And Jake, if you could change slides. Okay. So where we stand today is we are very comfortable with the fact that our current state allocation will not be reduced. Through the end of December, our fall tuition and enrollment was better than budgeted, better than expected. And overall, our units and our colleges are living within their expense budgets and meeting their revenue expectations. So we're on track. So what that means is just as we pulled those two levers back to curtail expenses, we can start to release them. And that's exactly what we're doing. The first of which is we will not need all the contingency. So we held back that 5% equated to about $17 million. We can release about 4.3 million of that. The second thing is because tuition, the central portion of the tuition and tuition in total was larger and greater than budgeted, we have a bit of a surplus on tuition. So that means that we have about $6.7 million of surplus that we can use to help kind of release some of those budget levers that we pulled in the fall. Okay. If you could turn the page. All right. And our proposed action is basically, number one, to release a portion of the contingency, let it go back into the colleges for colleges to be able to use those funds to meet expenses through the rest of the year. And secondly, and more importantly, is to partially restore some of those retirement reductions. We took it down to 2.5%. We'd like to take it back up to 6% through the rest of the fiscal year. And that's about $5.2 million. We think that the employees, this is well deserved. The employees contributed to make the fall and the spring and this entire situation successful. And we think that from a budget surplus standpoint, it's only right to be able to address that and return some of that. But one thing that the board we wanted to make the board aware of is the fact that this decision or this action proposal is based on recommendations that we receive from a very wide array of people across campus. Deans, a university-wide budget planning and monitoring committee, academic officers council, and also the president's leadership group. So this is what you're seeing with the reinstatement of the retirement at 6%. Although we can't take it back to where it was, the recommendation from that group was to fund as much of it as we possibly could. And at this point, we're comfortable with the 6% through the rest of the year. And as we look forward to next year and into next year, we'll have to reevaluate what it looks like beginning July 1 based on what we're seeing with the budget for next year. So with that in mind, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Does anybody have any questions for Dan?
This is John Chilton. Just to be clear, this is changing the percentage on a go-forward basis. Does it have any effect on what would have been a contribution under the old rule had we not changed it?
No, it's go forward. February 1 through June 30.
Okay. One more question. You got assurances from Frankfurt. Was that from the governor's office or from the budget office or the legislature, or who gave the assurance?
Basically all three. The governor's budget, thus far, what we're seeing with the legislature and what we're hearing from the budget office is that they feel that not only are we protected this year from reductions, but also, again, you can only, today's today, tomorrow's tomorrow, tomorrow's another day. But we're also hearing that next year looks like it may be basically the same amount as appropriation as this year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, any other questions for Dan? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve?
Mary, I think John Smith had his hand up. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, John. Go ahead.
No problem. Thank you. Hey, not a question. Just a statement of appreciation and thanks to Dan and everybody else that's been involved in this. Going back to December, the level of transparency that this has been done with has been outstanding. I know Dan came to the staff senate, presented to us. I know he went to the faculty senate. He answered questions, and it's been clearly communicated, which, you know, has been a thing on years ago on our campus that we started wanting more of. But Dan and Neely and the whole team have communicated. So I just wanted to say thank you, and that's all very appreciated.
Excellent. Thank you, John. All right, may I have a motion to approve the retirement amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Motion carries. Wonderful. All right, we shall move on. And the next item of business is the report of the president. Neely, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Today, I will be having a number of members of my team provide updates, and I will then summarize with a overview of the year that has been, and also provide you a mid-year update of the goals we have set for FY21. So first up, and these are all topics we've talked about, and we are excited to share with you our progress, and also solicit your advice and input. First up, I'd like to begin with Dr. Michael Wade Smith, who is my Chief of Staff and External Affairs. He and his colleagues are going to provide you with an update on the university's branding project. Michael, would you please begin and introduce your colleagues as well?
Indeed. Thank you, President Mendipudi, Chair Nixon, and members of the Board of Trustees. We are excited to share with you some of the good news and good progress we've made over the last year. As you all know, over the last 2.5 years at U of L, we've done some truly extraordinary things. The acquisition of the healthcare system, because of your support, stabilizing the budget, reaching our highest enrollment levels in more than 20 years, reaching the highest research funding in the university's history with $170 million, becoming a HEED diversity champion, and so much more. We have a ton to be proud of as a university because of your leadership and the leadership of this team. It's still the case, however, that despite all of these successes, that many in our campus community, and certainly in the larger Louisville community, that people still can't clearly articulate what it means to be a U of L Cardinal. There's an old branding axiom for organizations like ours that a branded house is stronger than a house of brands. But today, in both messaging and visual design, U of L is a house of brands where most academic and administrative units have unique expressions of our Cardinal brand, of our U of L brand. And if you go out in the community, you talk to people and say, what is U of L great at? What is the U of L story? And you'll hear 1,000 different examples. And they're probably all true and they're all right. But because we don't have an overarching brand language, brand architecture, we don't have a way for people to reinforce the messages of the university in a consistent way to strengthen our brand, to strengthen our work and drive us forward. But today, we're pleased to share with you the tremendous progress we've made to that end over the past year or so in our brand evolution and our positioning initiatives to move us closer to being a branded house with a clearly articulated position in the marketplace, as well as a defined living brand. So joining me today to share in the great news and the good work that's been going on are Kim Butterweck, our U of L Executive Director of Brand and Marketing in the Office of Communications and Marketing. She's an award-winning storyteller. She has a 20-year career in communications and marketing at Papa John's, New West Agency, and for the last 6 years here at U of L. And Kim leads our messaging and creative services teams in OCM. And we also have on the screen here, Tam Powell. She's the Senior Vice President and Senior Advisor from our Strategic and Brand Partner Agency, BVK. Tam actually built the higher education practice at BVK and has experience helping a ton of top-tier institutions that she'll speak to across the country define their institutional brands. And before her work at VVK, she actually led marketing at a large Milwaukee healthcare system with 7 hospitals. So she has all perspectives on that, healthcare and university marketing, which is particularly helpful in the situation of U of L. So we know that defining and articulating who we are as an institution is more critical today than ever. Because today people are seeking to engage with brands that stand for something that's more than just the service that they offer, particularly our student population. Gen Zers deeply, deeply care about the ethic of their brand, about the values of their brand. So in today's competitive landscape where the value of education is continually questioned, it's even more essential that we differentiate U of L from our competition in terms of recruiting students, but also for our alumni and our government stakeholders for monetary support and further investment in the institution. We want people to understand what we stand for. The Cardinals, we know from the research that we've done, crave a sense of optimism and progress to rally around. We also know that students who choose the University of Louisville are choosing it for a reason. They're choosing it to make a statement, to be different, to join a community that is more diverse, that's more cutting edge. And we see that in the marketing research that we've done. And we know we have a unique opportunity at this moment to support a large-scale brand project to define the institution because we're at a place of celebrating success. As you all know, the university is in a really, really good place now after many years of driving to this point. So now is the time for us to do the work of defining the brand for the future, and we're so excited to do that. So I want to talk a little bit today about the opportunity ahead of us. And evolving our brand is going to help. Actually, let me ask a question. Can you see the, okay, there we go. Kim is sharing the slides. There we go. So in front of you, the opportunity I want to talk about today is that evolving our brand is going to help demonstrate how U of L can deliver on our unique value proposition as an institution of higher learning. I mean, we've articulated this position over the last 18 months, and that position is written on the top of this slide. To position U of L as a vital ecosystem that creates thriving futures for students, the community, and society. This positioning was sourced from tons of research of prospective students, current students, alums, conversations within the U of L community. This is how we want to situate the University of Louisville in the marketplace. Kim will talk a little bit more further in the presentation about the positioning statement, but I wanted you to hear it out loud, that we are a vital ecosystem that creates thriving futures for students, the community, and society. All of these words are important. And as you can see from the diagram, the opportunity for the positioning is happening at the intersection of brand, culture, and audience. So this is not just about marketing. It's not even really about the new brand campaign and all of the visuals you'll see, although that's critically important. This is so much more than that. It's about organizational alignment. It's about well-articulated differentiation from our competitive set. In my dissertation study that I completed back in October, hallelujah, one of the key findings in my research was that in higher education, maybe more than in most service industries, the value of a university's brand is shaped so significantly by the interactions students particularly are having with internal stakeholders, staff, faculty, mentors, and others. This means that our brand work can't just be focused on external marketing. It also has to be deeply concerned with the culture of the organization and an institutional investment in making sure that we are all living this brand positioning and are deeply committed to the brand of the university and how our internal stakeholders are expressing that brand. And if you're interested, Neely also has a really important piece on this in her academic career in Harvard Business Review called Creating the Living Brand that speaks to this same idea that within an organization, employees and our internal stakeholders are actually one of the most critical stakeholder groups in living out the organization's brand and delivering on a brand promise. So we're also considering many audiences besides our internal audience. Prospective students, donors, the legislature, and many, many more. And we'll speak lightly to that in this presentation, but are happy to answer any other questions you may have. When we think about all of these audiences, we have to differentiate the institution, but we also have to differentiate the message. So the key to our differentiation, on the next slide, Kim. Thank you. Our key is really creating a unique value and a clear point of differentiation for the university. For each of our audiences, we're going to be asking ourselves, so what? Why would they care? What's in it for them? What's in it for each one of our core audiences? We know that we have to lead from a place of values, and Neely did an incredible job at the beginning of her time here articulating the institution's values after tons of conversations with stakeholders in the cardinal principles. And we know already that those values lead to a more intimate emotional connection with the institution. And we know that emotional connections with the institution lead to action, lead to wanting to be a part of this organization's future. The brand that we're going to talk about today is not one that we created. It's one that we uncovered through conversations, through the history of this organization, through your leadership in the board and through the leadership in this organization. All we're doing is articulating the story around the brand, and we're excited to share that work with you. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Kim, and Kim and Tam are going to walk you through some of the work that we've done. And we're happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation, and so excited for the opportunity that we have to plant a flag for what U of L is and coalesce all of our resources around a defined brand that can be incredibly successful in the market. So Kim, if you'll share a little bit more about where we've been and where we're headed.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. Thank you. So first, let's take a look at how the brand has evolved in the past 30 plus years. You know, from our first academic identity program in 1983, the first official university and athletic logos in 1986. But the real purpose for this slide is to show the disparity in attention to visual versus messaging platforms. And that is what we're working to rectify now. Because again, brand is about who we are at the core. It's not just about how we visually present ourselves to the world. It's about who we are. So quickly, to give some context, our brand evolution work began in September 2017 after the recruiting scandal broke. So while we were doing the phase of Secure and Protect, which is continuation of our ongoing response and transparency related to negative stories, we also became much more intentional and proactive to engage and enhance. And this is us reaching out to key audiences by sharing feel good, do good stories to counteract that negative narrative. And this affinity campaign, as we call it, still continues today. And included in that was our We Are U of L campaign, which we saw really, especially internally, had the power to motivate and unite. And then now we are in the position of repositioning and rebuilding. So as we look to reposition and rebuild our brand, we want to ensure that the evolved brand was informed by research, aligns with the university's vision, mission, and strategic plan goals, and is authentic, memorable, and demonstrates value for our audiences. Again, the so what, who cares, what's in it for me? We need to highlight the benefits for our audience, why they should care about being part of the U of L family. And why is that? Because emotion is a shortcut to a purchasing decision. People buy with their hearts, and they believe in brands that match their ethics and their principles. And again, to reiterate what Michael said, this is something that we uncovered. We've uncovered the brand, and since the time that our work on this project began, we have adapted and evolved. Our brand work is based on research. We've conducted qualitative and quantitative research. This includes focus groups, stakeholder interviews, an online survey that was completed by 2,300 respondents, including students, prospective and current, faculty, staff, alumni, and Kentucky residents. And we partnered with Simpson Scarborough, who is a very well-known higher education research firm for this work. And the insights gleaned from this research led to our brand positioning and messaging framework. And also, we have now, under new leadership, have a path defined. We have our strategic plan, which is our roadmap for becoming a great place to learn, work, and invest. It guides us as a university community towards meeting our objectives. The Cardinal Principles, that's the roadmap for how each individual in the Cardinal family is expected to conduct themselves. We've also uncovered some priority initiatives, including grand challenges, the Cardinal anti-racism agenda, and of course, all the many strategic partnerships. So the big question is how do we bring all this great work together? So what are we working to accomplish? What problems do we need to solve in order to raise awareness of our brand, generate interest in U of L, create that emotional connection with our audiences that drives desire to be part of the U of L family, and then ultimately encourages our stakeholders to take action? So there have been many changes since we began this Brand Forward plan, and we've adapted and pivoted, but the essence and the core of what research helped us uncover about our brand has not. So this is from our brand audit. As Michael mentioned, it uncovered that our current messaging is fractured. Each audience is receiving a different message. And so what we are working to do now is to create that emotional connection, engender excitement, give people reason to believe. We need to be consistent and compelling because the whole story that we have to tell as a U of L community really is greater than the sum of its parts, although each of those parts are pretty amazing too. And then ultimately what we're looking for is awareness, understanding, and action, engagement. So what success looks like: improved awareness, perception, and engagement. This second bullet is bolded for a reason, because this is what we're really going to dig in this year on creating a consistent brand experience, speaking as one university with one voice, unified messaging, and visual presence. In just a bit, we'll talk a little bit more about some internal workshops that we'll be conducting in Q1 to engage leaders at all levels across the campus to understand their specific key performance indicators and how the brand can help them reach their strategic goals. So, the purpose for evolving the brand is bigger than just for marketing needs. It's cultural and it's visionary. It's how we define, articulate, and live the Cardinal family's noble purpose. So this brand framework is the roadmap for how we talk about ourselves, how we express ourselves as one voice, one university. The positioning, our collective noble purpose, vital ecosystem. We are a vital ecosystem that creates thriving futures for students, the community, and society. The pillars, these are primary message points that support this positioning and highlight our competitive advantages. They are redefining student success. We invest in the whole student to unleash their potential and prepare them for the careers, workplaces, and complex challenges of tomorrow. This is about purpose-driven learning, investing in what students are and who they will become. Research and innovation powerhouse. We create and apply knowledge that improves lives. We talk about our grand challenges, that we're looking for cures for COVID and cancer. And I have to say, I love this quote from Neely, that the beauty of an R1 university is that every day there is something to celebrate, some new knowledge being created, some discovery that is improving the world. And premier metropolitan research university. We are in and of the city. Let me give you then, the next step is to go down and to give reasons to believe. And these will be proof points that support these assertions that we're making in the pillars, and then it lends credibility to our audiences. And I'll very quickly go through a few examples for you. Example, as one of only 6 to 9 universities in the US to earn recognition by the Carnegie Foundation as both a Research One and community engaged university, U of L both creates and applies knowledge that makes a positive impact. So that is one proof point that supports research and innovation powerhouse, as well as premier metropolitan university. We could take that one step further and talk about redefining student success, that the community is an exception of their classroom learning, that we integrate what they learn in the classroom and we take it out into the community. Proof of that, Raise Red, our signature partnership program, the great work of the Engage Lead Serve Board. An example to support research and innovation research and innovation powerhouse is our Green Heart Project from the Christina Lee Brown Environment Institute. It's a first of its kind study on how plants affect human health. We planted trees in Louisville South End to help researchers unearth the connection between heart disease prevention and air pollution. Again, proof of how we are a research and innovation powerhouse and how we're making a difference in the community. And then one more that I just have to get in here on redefining student success. We're expanding access to education for underserved populations. And as proven by, we are one of only 3 universities in the country recognized for providing equal access to Black and Latinx students. So we're proving that pushing for inclusivity leads to empower students who build a better world. So again, this is more than just a marketing slide. We need to live this. This should inform the work that we do and how we do it. So as mentioned earlier, we are going to be doing brand workshops to engage the campus community in how the brand can and is helping us achieve our goals. A key part of integration, in addition to these brand workshops, is our website. It's our front door, our primary presence. It's our expression to the world of who we are, what we're accomplishing it, and why we're accomplishing it. So last year, we launched a multi-year project to revamp our entire U of L digital presence. And we're working to create a web experience that is audience-centered, an authentic representation of our brand, demonstrates our commitment to being a great place to learn, work, and invest, and supports institutional and priorities and goals. So web is a key initiative, and as I mentioned, integration among the U of L community also is key to establish KPIs, monitor success, and live the brand. Marketing may be the most visible, obvious expression of brand, but it runs much deeper than that. So now to speak more about brand integration and creative execution, I am going to hand it off to Tam.
Great, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to be here in front of you and share some of the great opportunities we have to continue the great work that's been started. As Kim mentioned, the web is the gateway in terms of expression of the brand especially, but what's even more important than that is the brand experience that our students and target audiences have at every touch point in the organization. And that's why it's important to really internalize a brand from the inside out before we go out with and just talk about brand expression. I've been doing this a long time, 24 years at BVK, working with the likes of Michigan State University, Louisiana State, Clemson, UMass, TCU, and they've all done a very good job of integrating the brand at sort of what I call a fundamental level, where they're sharing, they're socializing the brand expression as John and Kim have begun to do. And then let the creative do the heavy lifting in terms of getting people excited and on board in terms of living the brand. And that's not the ideal way to do it. It's the way a lot of institutions do it in higher education because of time constraints and budget constraints. But I'm happy to report that at U of L, this leadership team has made a commitment to doing this the right way and really getting in and doing integration at the most foundational level. And that starts with the workshops that Kim alluded to that we're going to start here in Q1, might likely continue a little bit into Q2. But that's where we're really meeting with every unit, department lead, college, and working with them to identify what those key performance indicators are, and also identifying what the reasons are to believe underneath those brand pillars that Kim just walked through, because they all have to ladder up to the bigger institutional level, but they all need to understand the role and responsibility they play in bringing that branded house together and not being a house of brands. So it's a really exciting opportunity. And again, we're going to roll up our sleeves and collaborate on what are those KPIs. And admissions, it could be something like we've done for other institutions where we start looking at app form submits and enrollment form submits and that kind of thing, and measuring the cost per, and are we in the right places, and are we getting the right students who are converting. And now more than ever, yield is a thing. It's always been a thing, but now there's no playbook. The playbook has been thrown out the window with COVID. Students are being enrolled at more than one institution, and we're wondering where they're going to show up in the fall. So there are a number of ways we can monitor that and set ourselves up up for success, we can monitor, like, are they going online and signing up for the login for the institution? So are they signing up to be a Cardinal? Are they following some of the engagement opportunities that they have as a Cardinal? And we can measure these things. And then we have a better sense of, are they likely to show up on campus in the fall or not? And we're better positioned for success in reaching those goals and objectives. So it works for advancement too. With Michigan State University, we were really monitoring alumni engagement, and that was really important because they didn't have a lot of alums that were contributing to any sort of capital or annual campaign, and that's part of ranking. So we want to know what that is, and we want to set goals with what are we trying to do each year in terms of that engagement and that donation level. So we can monitor all those things, and we can help these departments create those measurable ways to do that. So that's a really key part. And as I've told Michael and Neely and anyone who will listen, this is a great opportunity for U of L to show the world of higher education. This is the textbook way to do brand integration. So I'm excited to share with you the successes as we go forward there. So what does this mean in terms of the creative execution? How are we creating that unique opportunity to differentiate and create those meaningful, engaging conversations with all of our key audiences? And there's a lot of them. Well, that all starts with the insights. The insights that we learned from the research. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The research that we did with Simpson Scarborough, and also part of our, Sorry. Part of our brand process, don't show my slides ahead of time. Part of our brand process was really to talk to those key stakeholders throughout the university. And we spent a ton of time on campus because that's how we really get the feel. And that's how we landed on and uncovered the brand value of vitality, because it was literally something palpable we could feel when we were here, and every individual that we talked to talked about it. It was something that felt like it was always present, but it was something very inspirational, even created a sense of forward momentum as we talked to people. And it really became clear that it was a feeling that connects people as Cardinals, and it connects the campus with this city that you're so intricately connected with. So the imagery that we're going to be developing going forward will bring that to life. You're going to see a series of portraitures, individuals and people working together that really capture that essence and that spirit of what it means to be a Cardinal. You're going to see moments where you can see that the fire inside of them has been ignited by their experiences on this campus and how they're going to go take that into the world. And you're going to see iconic imagery both from the campus and the city that does tend to ignite us and light that fire as well, and really capture that sense of vitality that we uncovered here. So the basis of the foundation of this is starts with this iconic fundamental piece that we've developed, and we're working with a new and up and coming artist who's done a lot of great work, which I'll share in a minute. And it's about creating something we think is so unique and ownable for the University of Louisville that it's going to bring our Cardinal mascot to a new place. So we call it the Cardinal Essence now, and it's a new graphic way to talk about and display what it means to be a Cardinal. It feels fresh, it feels new, it feels aspirational, it feels empowering, and it will really help us further articulate this essence of vitality that we feel. It's bright, it's bold, it's recognizable, and it's authentic. So let me tell you just a quick little nod to the artist, because we selected him for a very important reason. His name is Shane Griffin, and he's Irish, and he's done a lot of work for like Google and Apple and Adidas and Nike. But one of the main reasons that we found him was the work he did for Apple in the launch of the iPhone 8, the chromatic wallpaper that you see there in the center. And he's really started to explore how light meets color and how there's a sense of movement and momentum that goes with that. And that was inspiring to us. So we hired him to create the Cardinal Essence that you just saw. We're seeing great derivations of it, and we're about 3/4 of the way through that exercise. So we're excited to show you all the different ways the Cardinal's going to come to life in new ways across the board. So if you take a look at the fact that we can marry this cardinal essence, and you see some of the wings there in the top left, and you marry it with this bold concept we're putting in front of you, now we have the ability to create a never-ending set of messaging elements to go forward, whether it's online and digital tools, whether it's on campus or out of home executions, whether it's print ads or posters, video assets for TV or for digital. All of these things paired with this bold messaging and the spirit that we're conveying really allow us to create a never-ending palette of executions with not a lot of words and not a lot of explanation. And in very short order, people are going to start to see that and know without even reading it, that's University of Louisville. And that's where we want to get to really quickly. So together, these elements become the canvas on which we can tell this amazing U of L story and paint it as we go and as we change and as we morph. It'll allow us to talk about ourselves in a new and differentiating way. It's the story you all have been waiting to tell. And we can do it at the brand level. We can do it across programs, colleges, departments. And this is where the reasons to believe come in. They will come and support some of these big statements we're making. We're giving them very, very powerful reasons to believe, to lend credibility to what we are saying. And as Kim and her team have socialized this across every aspect of the university to rave reviews, I'm most excited to tell you that athletics is showing signs that they want to embrace this wholeheartedly and use the Cardinal graphic as part of what they do going forward. And I will tell you, having done this for a very long time, that rarely happens. As we all know, athletics is the tail that usually wags the university dog. So we're excited that there's a collaboration, and it feels like we're indeed on the right track with this work. So in closing on my section here, this is a quote that Neely loves to use, and it's often attributed to Keats, but it could be Dr. Michael Wade Smith had said it. We really don't know these things. But really what we need to take away from this slide is what we are all here for is bigger than just educating our students. That's a huge component of it, but that's what all universities do. It's really about supporting our students, no matter where they come from. It's about lighting that fire within them, within their academic experience here, but also what they're learning personally, so that they can go out into the world and make that difference that they were made to do. So that's why we're investing in students and what they can become. And this is the bigger picture that we all need to understand as Cardinals. This is what we're here to do, and this work should inspire us to go out and do just that. So with that, I'm hoping that you all are as excited about the direction we're taking this as we are. And I know the very next question you're going to ask is, what now? What are the next steps? And so I'm going to hand it back over to Kim to share that with you.
Great, thanks, Tam. So where do we go from here? Integration, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing a series of brand workshops and discussions. Also going to creative production, which as Tam mentioned, it's already begun and it will continue. Also do want to point out that yes, COVID is, putting a wrench in our plans, but we're going to be able to adapt. And the good news is that BVK has been working and producing campaigns during COVID, so they have adapted to all the necessary requirements and the hurdles that you have to jump in to be able to do that. Our internal launch, and then we're targeting a broader external launch in early 2022. But it's important to note that we've been using this brand messaging and even visuals for about a year now, probably most notably during our May 2020 graduation celebration. We used it for December commencement as well. And really excited that we're working with admissions now to update our materials for their next recruitment cycle. So here are our major milestones for our continued brand development and launch, both internally and externally. Media strategy development. We're going to, as Tam alluded to, going to be developing a toolkit, both of visual pieces and messaging pieces that folks out in the colleges and the departments can use to more easily tie into the larger brand. The brand workshops, campaign production, activation and training, the web improvement project implementation with the plan to have phase 1 of that web improvement project launched by late summer, early fall, and then of course our brand campaign launch. With that, I will turn it back over to Michael for questions.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Tam. And Madam Chair, if you or the board have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Well, I'm sure we do, and I do. So first, Kim, Tam, and Michael Wade, excellent presentation, and I am thrilled to see this coming to life because having spent 21 years at a company that was all about branding, Yum Brands, I have been around a lot of marketers and brand people, and I appreciate what you do. And you can, if I like it, you should be scared though. But seriously, I'm thrilled to see this coming to life. But then I have to remind you that I was a finance person at Yum Brands. And when I see something this significant, I always wonder, how are we going to pay for it? Because this, rebranding, logos, marketing, advertising, alignment is expensive. And I don't recall when we were working on the budget, us specifically talking about this initiative, though I know we talked about funding elements of the strategic plan. So if you could just kind of address that for me, that'd be helpful.
Absolutely. So this does fall into one of the key initiatives of the strategic plan, and that strategic investment fund is probably a key area. We have not finished the budgeting conversation, so I don't want to speak out of turn with our CFO on the line because I'll get in trouble. We are working through what level of investment we can make in this campaign, and as you know, it can be done on the cheap to less effect, or it can be done with no upper limit to great impact. We're going to probably be somewhere in between on the cheap and limitless investment, but that's still to be determined. Just to give a sense of what is normal, though, in higher education, our colleagues down the road in Lexington have recently sought budget approval for about a $7 million investment in a new branding campaign. There's a similar investment in marketing in our health system. We're going to try to be competitive in this marketplace, but we won't do anything that Dan Durbin tells us we can't do. So we'll be working over the next couple of months to define that. But we can still move forward with a lot of the internal planning work to make sure that we're successful at whatever budget level we're able to commit.
And Michael, if I may add in too, one thing that you said, Mary, we're not changing our actual logo or our colors. So that right there, we're not going to have to, throw out all our old stationery and put a new logo on it. So, and that's where a ton of cost really can come in when you have to, rebrand buildings and such. So really, again, we're really focusing to use the existing assets, elevate them, and then most importantly, just make sure that we're speaking in a consistent voice as a university.
Excellent. I see David and John both have their hands up. David, do you have a question or a comment?
I have more, I don't know if it's a comment or a question. I like the idea and I like the Cardinal essence. I wonder, is the graphic, the artist production, is that set in stone at this point, or can it be changed? In particular, the one figure that kind of shows the image of the bird kind of morphing out of the color, I don't know if you got feedback on it, but it has a parrot beak, not a cardinal beak. It has a hooked beak, and I wonder if it's going to look odd that it doesn't look like a cardinal. Right. It looks like another bird.
I hear you completely, David. And it has the beak. It echoes the beak of the cardinal mascot, our brand, our mascot image, which also has a more rounded than pointy beak. So you're absolutely right. It doesn't have the pointy beak of an actual cardinal. There are adjustments that can be made, but it'll probably be difficult to do that. It's important, though, to know that the essence is probably not going to be used as the full image that you're seeing there. We're going to be able to pull bits and pieces from it and apply it in different ways. So in the applications you saw, there are only a couple where you use the entire image. In our introduction message for our new provost, Lori Gonzalez, you saw all of the images that we sent out on that had one little section of that cardinal essence just to frame her picture and show a connection to the University of Louisville. So it'll be hard to make a shift away from that, but the reason behind it is we're echoing this curved beak of our most valuable brand asset. We want to make sure that that is truly central because it's our most recognizable and valuable asset for this university.
Yeah, and I'm ignoring the fact that our other logo has teeth on it, which again, it should have teeth, but that image, it's hard for me, and I've seen it before, to recognize anything out of it right away. I kind of have to concentrate and look for the image, and I just think other people might see it and think, well, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't look like
it's meant to be more of a canvas that sits behind the work, and it begins to feel like fluid motion. It won't serve the same role as an actual logo of the Cardinal. Okay. It won't ever sit that way, in which case people, I think, would pick up on those nuances a lot more quickly. So okay. It's more of a background piece.
Thank you.
John? Thank you.
Yeah, Kim and John Dries both previewed this with David, myself, and Krista and constituent groups. I don't think Sabrina was in on that, and our groups were all very excited about this and very much in favor of it. We had the same, I was going to have the same comment that David did. The essence bird, if that's what we're going to call it, if it was a little bit more instantly identifiable as us, I would be over the moon about that. But I really like everything in the presentation. I love the concept that we're getting back to something that we've uncovered, because there's something really affirming about recognizing that we're getting back in touch with a value that we've always held very dear and very close to ourselves here at our particular university. So I just wanted to share that this has been previewed with our groups. They were largely, well, it's been previewed with the leadership of not with our entire, I don't want to give the impression it's been shared with our entire sentence or something, with the leadership, and it was largely, yeah, very much in favor of things. And I guess my other thing is, our branding is largely associated with athletics, and I see Vince, so I'd kind of like to get Vince's feedback and input on this too.
Well, John, on that point, I was previewed on this as well in a meeting, and I hate to say the financial side of me came out much like Mary. I posed as Michael Wade, and Kim were laughing. I was thinking about just the having launch brands and just the breadth and depth of the launch, and what you have to take on over what period of time, and what the investment would be, not only to launch it but to sustain it. But in general, I can see where you can mix in what we have in our standard cardinal head, and with some of the abstract art that you're seeing here that can play in. We can certainly tie into that. I know Tam had mentioned that the other day, that athletics does have a way to integrate some of this as well. It wouldn't take away from our We Rise as One campaign. We could certainly have it be complementary in some of the materials we have. So, I think we're going to be supportive of what comes out. We're always going to have our cardinal head. David, we're always going to have our teeth. We're gritty, so we're going to have those teeth. But I do think that there is a pathway for us, and Lottie Stockwell and I've talked about that actually again last night, about as we were leaving the office, just talking about how we integrate this type of marketing into what we're doing.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else before I start telling stories about when we tried to mess with the Colonel? Brings back.
I'll tell you about the Fruit of the Loom guys.
And I did see a note that somebody asked about getting copies of, I think it was a particular slide, but we will be sharing the entire deck with this group. So
yeah, that's great. Well, again, just really excited to see this come to life because I am a huge appreciation of having the right brand and having the right message. And it sounds like you all done a beautiful job of being inclusive and listening to people and coming up with something because change is hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, everybody. We are excited to share this with you. This will be a journey. This will not happen overnight, but it's something that we are very committed to. And I hope you notice that we are paying a lot of attention to first sharing it internally and get everybody to understand and tell the story, and then we'll have our external launch. And no, Michael Wade, you're not getting $7 million. I wish we could, but still, it's very, very exciting for us to move forward.
Thank you.
We have a couple other very important updates for you. I would like to ask Tom Miller, the CEO of UofL Health, to provide us with a quick update, if that's okay.
Thank you. And I would just say from a branding standpoint, UofL Health is also going to be hopefully participating in this and complementing that brand. And from a personal standpoint, for my red ties, the 5 of them that I bought, thank you for letting me continue to wear red because I have plenty of them. But Vince, if you will, or Jake, if you will put up the slides, I would appreciate it. So first of all, I would just say that we completed our first year with the acquisition of Kentucky One, and I do appreciate the board's belief in the ability that we can make a difference in this community and how critical this was for the health of Louisville. None of you knew at the time about a pandemic, and yet I think we've made critical issues work for this community. And I just want to give you some idea of the scope of what we're talking about. Yesterday morning, we had 1,014 inpatients within our hospital. That's a 1014. At Jewish Hospital, we had 302 patients in the hospital. If that hospital were to close down, there is no ability for the healthcare community to be able to take that slack up and treat those patients. Just no ability for that. And I think we're doing it in as positive way as we possibly can. But I will just go back to the slides and say, first of all, I know you know COVID is real, but it's still very real for us, and we live it every single day. We've completed 107,000 COVID tests in the community, and we use the term positivity rate to represent how prevalent COVID is in the community. In December, it was 12.3%, which was the highest. That continued for the first 2 weeks in January, and we had this holiday spike, and we're now starting to see some relief associated with that. We had 129 COVID patients in the hospital, and when we last met in December, we were on around 100 patients. So that has increased about 30%, but we're just now starting to see it. It went down to 100 patients this morning, and so perhaps we'll see that spike go down some. We did, in our November timeframe during the holiday season, we did have to, at University Hospital, choose to delay some elective surgeries just because we didn't have enough beds and resources associated with that. That has not been the case since that 2-week period of time. You will hear the term rationing as you hear national news on healthcare. That is not what's going on. Our healthcare team is stretching itself to be able to meet the needs. We never say no, even if it's a hospital in West Virginia where we've gotten calls to take care of patients. We don't say no. But we are in a situation now that I would tell you that is something that we had not planned. We thought we would be able to recruit nurses to our organization. And we're sitting today with about 500 openings in our nursing staff. Now our staff are working overtime. We've been able to hire agency and travel nurses to make up for that. But those are not long-term solutions. But our workforce is working extraordinarily hard. They're dedicated to meeting the needs. And that term healthcare heroes is a real terms that we are using for the group that we have. But we do have a critical issue in regard to not having enough nurses in this community. From a vaccine standpoint, there's hope. We have given, by this morning, we should have given 10,000 vaccines out in the community, generally focused toward healthcare workers, both within our organization and outside the organization. That includes all of our physicians, the residents, and community providers that have chosen to get that. We're having about a 20% decline rate, which is surprising to us. And we think eventually that'll get up another 10%, so that about 90% of the people who are giving invitations will take that. This week, we began focusing on the 1B from the state, and that is the population age 70 or older who have healthcare risk. We are giving that out, but we don't have enough vaccine to be able to do that in mass quantities. We're being limited to about 2,000 vaccines a week, doses from the state, when we can give probably 6,000 out within the structure that we have. There is a national shortage of that today. That could change with the new administration. And there's hope out there in that Johnson & Johnson is due to be approved for emergency use authorization within the next 30 days. And they say they have 1 billion doses that are ready to be shipped in the United States. And it's a 1-dose vaccine that doesn't require the -82-degree freezers. But we're doing everything we can associated with making sure that we stay the voice of the community, that we are trying to help both with the county department here, the state in partnership, and well as we're working in Bullitt and Shelby County. But the biggest issue is there's just not enough vaccine to go on right now. Overall, I just want to let you know that with COVID, our volumes are down, and we do believe that some patients are delaying care. But when you look at our hospitals, even though the volumes are down, and I'll show that in a second, the number of patients in our hospitals are up, and they're up about 35 a day more than they were a year ago. Mainly that's related to the increased length of stay of patients. So the severity of patients that we're getting and the COVID patients that we have are staying longer than average, which is increasing the amount of patients in our hospitals, but our volumes are down. And then lastly, when we got together a year ago to talk about this, we outlined a plan on integration of CHI within our organization. We have completed that integration. We still have items left with IT, but we have left the need of using any CHI facilities. We will have completed full install of all our IT systems by the end of March. That includes both our physician practices and all of our hospitals. And as of January 1, we've taken over all of the billing that had left this community and were being done by outsourced groups. And so we've completed that integration. We haven't seen all the results associated with that because some of that will take months to do, but we've at least completed the implementation from an operations standpoint. Jake, go ahead. You missed one, I think, Jake. There. From a financial standpoint, again, I would just talk about volumes. Admissions are down 13%. ER visits are down 21%. Surgeries are down about 7%, and physician visits are down about 8%. We didn't anticipate all of that happening this year. However, the number of patients in our hospitals are up significantly. From an operating standpoint, we budgeted about $869 million of total operating revenues. We're running higher than that, mainly because of the increased admissions that we have, increased number of patients in the hospital, and the use of pharmaceuticals. Our pharmaceutical costs are way up. Operating expenses are up also, mainly related to 3 areas: contract labor, supply expense costs associated with COVID, and then pharmaceutical costs. Our EBITDA, though, is ahead of budget, and as our normalized income is also ahead of budget. We have taken in to income about $30 million of CARES Act funding. We do have $55 million still reserved based on federal government guidance, and we will be able to use that for either additional expenses or lost revenues that we have. We have held off on that for further guidance for the federal government, but we're still having a positive financial year for the organization. Jake, go ahead. Strategic growth and where we're going. We continue to focus on growth. We opened up an expansion of the Brown Cancer Center in Northeast, on the Northeast campus. We're adding a 6-bed ICU to Shelbyville, so it becomes more than a Band-Aid station, and we offer real health care out in the Shelbyville area. We're expanding our cardiology program to interventional cardiology at Mary and Elizabeth. That's due to open up in May. We are opening 2 additional operating rooms at University Medical Center. Those will open up April 1st. In order to solve the 500 nurse issue, we've taken a little different approach. We've been working with the nursing schools, but they cannot expand the graduates fast enough. And so we're trying to go outside the box, and we have developed a program to look at international nurses. And these are nurses who passed all the tests and can get licenses in the state of Kentucky. We have been interviewing those, and we have hired 305 international nurses that will be working through the immigration process over the next year to try to change the bell curve here, because we just don't have enough nurses, and they're retiring faster than we can train them. And then we are opening a spine center in Northeast on June 21st. But overall, I would tell you during this time, our goal for U of L Health has been the voice of this community, to be the voice of the community on helping get testing, on helping to understand about COVID, what people need to do, and helping them get their vaccine. And I think we're proud of that. Jason Smith, who's our chief medical officer, I think he's on the media every single day now, and trying to get the right message out. And so we're trying to do that. We're also focused still on access to care. We are developing 5 urgent care centers. 3 of them are open. One in Shepherdsville down south, one at the Medical Center Northeast, and one in the DuPont area. We have Hirschborn under development. We also will be announcing soon a site in the West Louisville area and one on the southwest side of town. And so we believe that's a critical aspect of trying to both meet what we have agreed to with the economic development loan, but also trying to further meet the needs of the community. We also have been aggressive in recruiting. We have 68 new providers that we have signed this year and 28 offers pending to try to rebuild the medical staff for the needs that are out there. And then we continue to work with the university in regard to residency programs and trying to offer new sites and greater access for those patients. Leapfrog came out with our results. We showed improvements in every one of our hospitals. All of our hospitals are above C. And as we complete some of the system issues, like the IT systems at Mary and Elizabeth and Peace, and we get barcoding at those locations, they will move to Bs and As at their hospital. There are more system issues that are the problem than actually the outcomes. And again, we focus on bringing academic medicine closer to the community. And so that's a goal that we have in trying to do that. So from an overall standpoint, I think your faith in us has been well placed. We are achieving the things that we're doing. And more importantly, I believe we're making a difference in this community more than we've ever done before. And so we appreciate your support and be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Tom? Tom, I'd just like to say thank you to you and your entire team. I've gotten 2 comments from people that got their vaccines this week down at the Brook Street location and raved about the experience, just how well they were treated by the people, how well it was ingress and egress, and just applaud you and your entire team for not only getting through these tough times, but actually thriving in a lot of ways and making a lot of progress.
Not many people say thank you for sticking something in their arm, so thanks for that.
Well, one person did say that it was pretty darn painful that night, but I don't think that was U of L's fault.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. We'll continue to bring you these updates, and we're taking very seriously our commitment to underserved areas and what we do in West Louisville, as you've heard. So we'll continue to bring you those updates. Next, we have a presentation from our CFO, Dan Durbin.
Yes, Jake, would you mind putting the, thank you. So if you could go to the 3rd page. Okay, we'll make sure we send this to the board rather than talk about numbers and words. We'll just go straight to the statements. Couple of things through the end of December. If you look at the center of the page, overall, from a revenue perspective, we have realized about 52% of our budgeted revenues, and that is less than last year. But there are a few areas that are lagging behind budget, and you'll see those in the status column with the yellow signs. The other revenue, those are areas that the investment income, our early learning center tuitions that take care of the the children of our employees and some of our students. So those revenues are lagging behind estimates, but those units are also adjusting their expense budgets to be able to live within those lower revenues. The same can be said for athletics. You'll see athletics is significantly down compared to the prior year, about $58 million. But again, athletics is adjusting their expense budgets. Thank you, Jay.
Dan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Raymond Burse posted that he cannot read the charts on the screen. I know we've sent it, but can you try and expand it maybe?
Yeah, Jake's driving, so. Is that better? Whoa. Jake, oh, I think we just.
That's
now
definitely
we're
not
eye
better.
test.
Give us a minute while he adjusts.
Okay.
It is going to be difficult to expand to exactly what you're saying. So Dan, you tell me what you want to see and I will adjust.
Jake, would it make a difference if I tried it, or is it the same thing?
It's going to be the same thing, but you are more than welcome to try if you'd like to drive it.
Yeah, let me take a shot.
Okay.
Is that any better?
I am able to expand it on my screen. I don't know how. Raymond, maybe you could try. On mine, I'm able to.
I will also send these slides right now so that people can bring them up in their inbox as well.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead,
that's
Dan.
probably the best option because I can't make it any bigger and I can see it if I get no, the closer I get, the worse it gets.
Dan, can you on your bottom right, can you expand it a little further just so we can see the data? Oh,
No, I'm pretty maxed out.
okay. I don't know if you could enlarge down below with the plus minus.
Yeah, mine's maxed out. That's
Okay.
why I thought I might be able to. Okay.
Just keep going, Dan.
Okay. So basically, we're at about 52% of our budgeted revenues have been realized, and again, athletics is lagging behind in terms of revenues compared to last year, but they have also adjusted their expense base. I think from a revenues less expenses perspective, they ended the first 6 months of the year with about 4 million positive. So they still have a positive margin, even though their revenues are down significantly. The other area that is down is the foundation, and it's down by about, from last year, it's about 6.5 million less, but those revenues are reimbursements for costs. So if we don't incur the costs, we don't receive the revenues. So the revenues are down, but we're also spending less of foundation dollars as well. So it doesn't really affect the bottom line operating margin. From an expense standpoint, the couple of large areas, first of all, all the expense categories are either performing at expectations or better than expected. Some of the, from a numbers standpoint, you'll see that salaries and wages are less than last year pretty significantly. That is mainly attributed to the PEDS integration, where we pulled the clinical salaries related to pediatrics off the university's books, and Norton's now responsible for those. So a combination of that and some of the fringe benefits that were related to those clinical salaries are driving the decreases in fringe benefits and salaries. Operating expenses are also less than last year. Just various things, support that Health Sciences Center provided to ULP from some grant agreements and things of that nature are helping not only the Health Sciences Center's bottom line, but in turn the university's bottom line. And we have some modest increases compared to last year in some of the other categories. Some of them, especially the capital assets and debt service, are more related to timing. But all in all, we ended the first 6 months of the year 47 with revenues greater than expenses of 47.5 million, which is about a $10 million improvement from the same time last year. And frankly, part of that is what fed into the decision to change the retirement plan that the board ratified a few moments ago. And just to give you a little more detail in terms of some of the more notable differences between the 2 years in revenues and expenses, we wanted to provide this that you can see in your leisure. But again, from a budget standpoint, we are right on target, and maybe in some respects just a little bit better, especially on tuition and fees. Whoops. Liquidity as far as our cash position remains stable. As you can see this year, every month has been an improvement over the previous year, over the months in the previous year. So we set about to improve our liquidity and our cash position, and we're following through on that. We're very stable on cash. This represents the 199 million, represents about 74 days. Okay. Now, as we look ahead to the next 6 months, there's a few things that I think might interest the board. The first of which is enrollment, spring enrollment. We budgeted spring enrollment on an FTE basis, just focusing on the undergraduate level. We budgeted about 11,482 FTEs. As of the 15th, we were about 323 ahead of that. 455 in total. You'll see the graduate enrollment is up above budget. Professionals down a little bit, and that's mainly attributed to the law school. But we think that just as we had good, strong enrollment in the fall, we see those trends continuing into the spring. And I have to take just a moment and acknowledge the hard work of our enrollment management area that's led by Jim Bagani, and all of the academic advisors, the student success coordinators, not only in enrollment management, but also in the colleges. These numbers about 5 weeks ago were very, very different. They were very different. Actually, they were some were negatives, and especially the undergraduate. And there was a lot of time, a lot of effort put in to recruitment strategies, aid strategies, and just personal reaching out and talking with students who had not re-registered for the spring to try to draw them back into the institution to help them continue their educational progress. So this was a team effort, but it certainly paid off. A couple of the other things as we look into spring, I mentioned athletics with their revenues and expenses. They are going to have some cash needs into the spring, and we continue to work on some interim lending arrangements to help cushion that need. It's getting better than it was a few months ago, but there's still going to be a need there. We also have another round of CARES dollars coming. We had a first round back in the summer of about $12 million in total, and we have another round coming of about it's around $20 million. We haven't received the final award authorization yet, but it'll be around $20 million. 6 million of that, a little over 6 million, is designated to student aid, which we've already devised a plan, and we've already started to work the disbursement of those dollars, applying them to the accounts, and also doing the refunds or the payments to the students. So that's well underway. We actually started that over the holidays. So we think that we're in pretty good shape for the next 6 months to meet all of our incremental COVID-related expenses with those dollars. And we're also watching daily where we're at and monitoring budgets, monitoring revenues, monitoring cash, the entire range of our financial activities to make sure that we not only stay on track today, but also through the end of the year and also into next year as we start the budget planning process, which frankly begins next Wednesday. We're going to start the process of identifying the budget needs and building that budget into for next year over the next few months for submission to the board in May, with an approval either in May or June. Whoops. So with that in mind, I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Madam Chair, if there are no other questions, we have a couple more updates that we'd like to provide.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
All right, thank you. Jake, would you pull up the Big Wins presentation? So for members of the board, I plan to present a couple of things to you. One, a quick overview of 2020. This is something I have shared with other boards. So Randy Bufford and Jim Rogers, bear with me as we go through this, and others who may have seen it with Eula and so on. Really, the purpose of this is to give you a quick overview of how hard the team worked in 2020 and what we have accomplished. When that is done, Madam Chair, I will present to you the progress on FY21, a mid-year update on what I presented to you in last July. So 2020, as you all know, brought us some very big issues. Next slide. But it also brought us big wins, and credit for this really goes to the team. I want to start by acknowledging Beth Bain, because when we talk about students and student success, these are areas that report up to her, and we will be celebrating her in our March committee meetings. And so I won't go too much into that now, but wanted to recognize the hard work there. We'll also talk about our research, and our EVP for research, Kevin Gardner, has actually, Beth and he have worked very closely on all aspects, including the testing and responding to COVID. There are so many people, from Mark Watkins, our COO, to Dan Durbin, Dr. Phil Brissoud of our campus health, a lot of people's hard work. And I may not call out every single one, but I want you to know this is to really show you what they've done in a truly challenging year. So next slide. These are the three areas I'll talk about: students and research and responding to COVID. Okay, next slide. On addressing COVID, I won't spend too much time on this because, as you all know, moving the classes online, providing COVID testing, this work continues. I will tell you that my biggest concern is that people let down their guard. We're so close to the finish line, but it's not over till it's over. And so we continue to encourage masking and physical distancing, good hygiene, all of these. So this is an ongoing effort for us. Next slide. Research. There has been some, this is an area where we really are very excited about the strides that have been made. I thought I would call out a couple of these to you. First of all, in terms of research, we have incredible work being done by Dr. John Trent, Paula Bates of the Brown Cancer Center. And they had come up with this aptamer, which is synthetic DNA that actually, this was to fight cancer, would bind to the protein of the tumor cell and prevent it from growing. But when COVID-19 hit, these incredible researchers said, could we take a look at this and see how it would do with COVID-19? And so that work was made possible because of the fact that we have Dr. Ken Palmer here and the Center for Preventive Medicine for Biodefense and Emerging Infectious Diseases. So they collaborated, and Dr. Palmer's work actually has a lot of implications. It's a collaboration with the National Cancer Institute, the University of Pittsburgh, and our own UFL. The Q Griffithson is the product that they are looking at as an aptamer for potential therapeutic purposes. The Co-Immunity Project, you've heard me brag on, it really has had a big impact. This comes out of the Christina Lee Brown Envirome Project, Dr. Aruni Patnagar and his team, wastewater tracking and helping the city fight this as well. In terms of other research that's coming out, this is back to Dr. Palmer's work on the nasal spray. Not everybody might be able to take the vaccine, but their work is on trying to see if it's possible to create nasal sprays for a variety of diseases, virus-borne, including potentially COVID. Two other things that I thought I would share with you is how we are leveraging the resources that exist within the Commonwealth. DataSeam partnership. John Trent, I do have to tell you, I will make sure that you meet them, because John Trent and Paula Bates are a husband and wife team that both are inducted into the National Academy of Inventors. I don't know how many couples ever made it in there, but it's a really big deal. So this is Dr. Trent again, who and other UFL researchers decided to make use of the computers that are in school districts across our Commonwealth to identify drugs for treating a variety of diseases. Now, these computers are used during the day, but in the evening, they're lying fallow. On the weekends, they're not being used. So by connecting them all, it acts like a supercomputer. And that grid has allowed our researchers to test 11,000 drugs so far. Either they're in the market or in development to see what would be effective against the virus. So very, very happy to see that work. And Annie, I thought I would also show you not just the basic research that's happening, but the more applied immediate. It's a virtual care tool that was developed by Jason Salim and PhD students at the Speed School. And that is to reach out to veterans and make sure that they're taking care of themselves during COVID-19 with alerts and connections and ways to monitor their own health and take charge. Next slide, please. In terms of research, and Tom Miller put it well, we are truly trying to be the R1 university that is the voice for the community and also addresses our needs. Decontamination of N95 masks. I'm sure all of you remember early on the real struggle for PPE and how would we be able to protect our healthcare workers. Dr. Leslie Sherwood, an Assistant Vice President for Research Services, and Sherry Hildreth, who directs our environmental health and safety, they co-led this project. And they used vaporized hydrogen peroxide and were able to sterilize up to 7,000 masks daily. That really helped our community, not just us, but the entire community, avoid the shortage of N95 masks when that was a real challenge all across the country. Another aspect in terms of COVID-19 is our Speed School's Additive Manufacturing Institute of Science and Technology. This is work by Ed Tackett and his team, and Ed led 80 students and 150 community volunteers. And they were able to produce hundreds of 3D printed face shields for first responders. And a team led by Jerry Grant from our School of Dentistry used 3D printers to produce about 385 nasal swabs an hour. And our bioengineering students, Sienna Shacklett and Clara Jones, built and compiled more than 700 testing kits a day. This is directly being involved in using the knowledge we have to address real challenges. And our School for Public Health and Information Systems has played a big part. In addition to Dr. Sarah Moyer, who heads up the Louisville Metro Department of Health and Wellness, our own Paul McKinney, who heads up the Center for Health Hazard Preparedness, has been working very closely with the city and the state. You know, those gymnasiums, those big arenas where people can drive through and get testing. They have been working very, very closely. And our doctoral student, T. Gonzalez, is serving as the director of Louisville's Metro Center for Health Equity. Could we go to the next slide? Patient care. Tom Miller has already spoken to this, so I won't go through details, but kudos to every single healthcare hero for what they have done to step up and help. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Another aspect that we've been very intentional about is being anti-racist. And I will talk about the anti-racism agenda in a minute, but I wanted to show you what this looks like when we put it into practice. This is building on years of great work at the University of Louisville, but we are pleased that this year we were named one of only 15 diversity champions by Insights into Diversity magazine among higher education institutions. And Dr. Faye Jones, who is our Chief Diversity Officer, and the whole team deserves credit for working closely with the boots on the ground, our deans, our faculty, our staff. This recognition signifies that UofL is recognized as a model of excellence for all campus communities. We were also one of 47 institutions recognized in a similar manner for health professions. So we're proud to have that dual distinction. Also, great joy, Michael Martis and I really enjoyed, and many of us, the NPHC, that's the National Panhellenic Council, the Divine Nine, the 9 traditional fraternities and sororities that have supported Black students. We had a plaque dedication and a refresh of the suite, just to give a space for people to come back, alumni to take pride, and for our students to engage. So this was an area that, after we did what we needed to do, was damaged in the recent water pipe break. But we are absolutely committed to making sure that we bring it up to speed as quickly as possible. We created virtual support groups for students who might want to talk about however the Breonna Taylor decision came down. We are glad that we were able to offer those. And I am so thrilled. Obviously, we all look up to Muhammad Ali, our own, and so we're planning, Enid and her team are working on the Transcendent Life, A Transcendent Life, Muhammad Ali exhibit at all of our libraries. In addition to this, when we talk about creating equity, we received $1 million grant, and we'll bring back details to you, to improve STEM opportunities for women. We still have disparities, and there's a real need for addressing this. Could we go to the next slide? I won't talk about this more. Dan has talked to you. This is something obviously that we worry about and think about every single day. We are, and I know that it's your guidance. And so my thank you to all of you. I think we will all agree that we're in a much better financial footing today than we were 2 years ago. So each year we will invest and be better. Next slide, please. Again, Tom Miller has spoken to this, so we won't mention this again, but good moves, and I thank the board for helping us get there. Next slide. Student impact, and this is where, as I said, who knew what would happen, but this fall, we started off with the largest enrollment in at least 20 years. And at a time when nationally numbers were down, we are very pleased that our numbers were up. And particularly with underrepresented minorities, you can see. And our graduation rate, it's nothing to be, bragging about, but I'm glad we're on the right trajectory. We're going to improve it, but despite everything, we're glad that our efforts are slowly paying off. And as I said, huge thank you to Beth and all of the teams, from housing to financial aid to enrollment, our advisors. This represents work on everybody's part. Could we go to the next slide? We have worked closely with our students to try to help them. An innovative optional program for students to enroll in if they wanted to, as insurance to protect against medical or other withdrawals. I thank you, Randy Bufford and the whole team, the board, everybody, for the support of our student and staff emergency funds. This continues to be a very, very big concern. I've told you before, we have a very high percentage of Pell Grant eligible students, and so our financial need is high. But candidly, even people who might have thought of themselves as middle class and okay, COVID-19 has hit them very, very hard. We have distributed our CARES funding to our students. And next slide, please. We continue. One of the things that's distinctive about us, as you know, is even in spring, when all the universities were closing down, we took care of about 2,700 students. And Michael Martis will correct me if I have that number wrong. we know that we are their home and we need to make sure that we support them, and we do. Let's go to the next slide. One other thing that I will talk to you about is in terms of our academic programming. When I show you the report card, I'm going to be showing you how we are making progress, mid-year progress on goals. We knew that this was incredibly important to support our students. So for our medical students, quickly developing virtual electives because they had to be pulled from the clinical environment. When you think about the breadth of this enterprise, everybody had to be innovative. And we're very proud, Dr. Sharon Carey and the Center for Digital Transformation, they were able to receive $6 million in NSA funding for the healthcare cybersecurity program. So very much appreciate that. Sabrina, thank you. I think I saw your comment about big shout out to Marion Vassar. I could not agree more. Really the support that they've provided students. Marion reports to Faye Jones and truly is a treasure in this community. Next slide, please. This I thought you might get a kick out of because you might all be using TikTok for all I know. This is new to me. I'm still trying to explore it, but we did have our virtual commencement ceremony and I was curious about the numbers and because we couldn't have it in person, but John Dries and the team worked very hard on this and about 14,000 visitors participated in online commencement. So that's great. And Kim talked about starting to include elements of this in our celebration. We did do that. Next slide, please. One of the things that I'm the proudest of is that we will have our Culture and Equity Center, a new center on track to open in fall 2021. It is important when we think about our students and what makes them succeed. It's academic preparedness, it's a sense of belonging, and it's the cost of attendance. You might think of it as the ABCs, and it is important for our students to have a sense of belonging. And I believe it was my very first semester here where Beth, Michael Wade, and I went and met with the students in the Multicultural Center. And they talked about, and it was pretty dilapidated, I cannot deny it, and how they'd been promised for a long time that they would get a new Culture and Equity Center. I thought it was important that we keep our word. So we embarked on it, a lot of collaboration. Dr. Faye Jones, Dr. Murtis, Dr. Baim, collecting feedback from students and from the community. Sabrina and SGA was a very big part of that. And we're delighted that it's on track to open. Let's go to the next slide. Research impact. So that's really academics, what we did with our students, how we're trying to retain them, have them be successful. Research, I mentioned this before, but Kevin Gardner has given me an update and we'll talk about it more. We have certainly, this was record breaking for us in terms of our external research and program funding. And it's very important. This is a metric that's observed closely to retain our R1 status. I thought I would mention just a couple of research projects. One is the Pfizer Center of Excellence. As you know, Dr. Julio Ramirez and his team, unbelievable work that they've done over the years, allowed us to be selected as Pfizer's first Center of Excellence on infectious disease. And that's the only one in North America, and it's right here. That partnership, they've committed more than, just last year, more than $11 million to UFL research. So we're very proud of that, and we look forward to our continuing work with Pfizer. I will acknowledge that I've heard from a couple of you how we could have talked more about it when the Pfizer vaccine came out, and we are aware we'll be doing more of that. Also equally proud of our Youth Violence Prevention Center in West Louisville. And this is an award from the CDC to our School of Public Health and Information Sciences. And that's a $5.7 million to establish a youth violence prevention research center in West Louisville and connecting them to local resources. 2 other grants, all of these are at the national level and international level, as you know. Pfizer certainly is, but this is a national one. From the NSF, Kevin Walsh, Professor Kevin Walsh from the engineering school, his Micro Nanotechnology Center received a $3.5 million grant. And what is impressive about this is that means we are part of a 16-site network. And I just want you to know that in this group of 16 is Stanford, Harvard, Cornell, Georgia Tech, Duke, Chicago, Texas. So it's both wonderful to receive the funding and wonderful to be in that category of schools that are recognized for excellence. Dr. Gina Bertocci from the Speed School has also received a $2.7 million grant from the NIH. And it's to develop an evidence-based model to help our medical personnel differentiate child abuse from accidental fractures in young children. This is a statistic that is definitely a cause for sadness and pause on what can we do to do better. But the Commonwealth, our statistics for child abuse is about more than twice the national average. And so this research is important, and we are proud of Dr. Bertocci's work to help us identify and take appropriate actions. Next slide, please. Community impact. In April, I've asked Dr. Ralph Fitzpatrick to provide an update to you all on our community engagement. Those of you who know Ralph know that this is near and dear to his heart and something he's worked on in the team for a long time. So I won't spend too much time on this, except maybe to brag on our School of Music. So when you think of how can everybody play a part in a very tough pandemic, the School of Music, the Cardinal Marching Band, they performed at so many assisted living facilities, thanking our frontline workers. We're very proud of it. We're also very proud of grants that were not just for research, but directly to community engagement. You'll hear a lot more about that in April, so we'll move on. Our students have been active. Our libraries, Dr. Fox and the whole team, I find this project fascinating. I cannot wait to see, which is chronicling the COVID-19 pandemic. We're thinking about today, but 50 years from now, 100 years from now, people will want to know what happened in Louisville. How did we react? So that's part of that work. And similarly, the anti-racism study with the Filson Historical Society, our libraries, partnering on, again, what happened? How did the community respond? Dental clinics. We are very proud of the role that our School of Dentistry plays in the Commonwealth. Dr. Jerry Bradley and the whole team. I've talked to you about the Redbird Clinic in Eastern Kentucky, where every single dental student of ours has an opportunity to go and do a rotation there so they can actually provide care that is desperately needed. We continue to expand our footprint. We're expanding it to Paducah, and in this year, we'll open it one more site as well. Lastly, let me provide one more community impact example, because I really want to make you aware and hopefully get your help in publicizing this. Our School of Education has created a program. We're doing a lot of things to help JCPS increase the number of faculty of color that are in the schools. But this particular program, so there's many, just so you know, this is targeted to professionals, African-American professionals who may have a bachelor's degree in another field. They might be in a different line of work, or they may be retiring. Whatever the case might be, they might want to come in and be role models and outstanding teachers in our JCPS schools. Typically, if you wanted to do that, if you didn't have an undergraduate degree, it would take a long time to go back and get that degree and get the qualifications to teach. This program, the Louisville Teacher Residency Program, takes individuals who already have bachelor's degree and some years of experience, pairs them up with master teachers who are already in JCPS. So 4 days a week, they're watching them, learning this side by side, and then they're coming back and taking intensive coursework. In 1 year, they graduate with a master's degree and a job in the JCPS school system. So we really hope that this will be a way for a lot of people who want to make a difference to come in. Why is this important? Certainly there are programs like Teach for America or Kentucky Teaches and programs like that. But individuals who come here from outside the community might be teaching here for a few years, but they tend to leave and not really stay here. They've finished college, they're doing it for a couple of years. This is a way to hopefully incentivize and motivate individuals who've maybe always thought about making a difference to say, don't be afraid, we're going to give you a mentor. You learn by watching, learning, doing. And so very proud of that activity as well. Could we go to the next slide? Actually, I want to pause for a minute, Madam Chair, and see if there are any questions about the big wins for 2020. This is really a chance for me to say thank you to my team. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. If not, I would like your permission to provide an update on mid-year for FY21.
Has anybody got any questions for Neely? I don't have any questions, but I just have to say one thing, that it feels oftentimes like somebody hit the pause button last year. So hearing that, we've not only held our own, but made so many important record-breaking milestones during a challenging year like this, pretty darn inspirational. So thank you to you and your team.
Thank you. And I definitely have an exceptional team. No question about that. Thank you. I thought that we'd segue to FY21 and quickly share with you where we are. This is the traditional stoplight chart that many of you've seen. We'll do the red, amber, green alert. And this comes from my goals that I presented to you in July and that you approved. And so I thought I would give you a mid-year progress update. I won't go through every single one of them because some of that you already saw when I talked about our mid-year update. If you recall, I present you the goals you approved for me for FY21 fell into the learn, work, invest buckets and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'd just like to highlight a couple of things. There are, and I also need to tell you about this stoplight chart. I am talking about when you see the colors, I'll tell you that we are very much on track for where we should be mid-year, but I'm presenting this as though if you were to evaluate us today, where we would be. So I would like to address that. In terms of learn, I wanted to tell you that even though COVID-19 was a big issue for us, we did not let it stop us and we decided to go ahead. So for FY21, what we told you was that on undergraduate headcount, our goal was to not lose anybody, that it was to maintain where we were, that would be the win. As of now, we are actually ahead, but so I put it as an amber because we need to wait and see how the rest of the year goes. Big kudos to our Jim Begani, the enrollment team, the deans, the advisors, faculty, staff. It was everybody getting involved in making sure that students are retained, which is the next bullet, freshman to sophomore retention. We were all very concerned because from fall to spring, we were concerned about how many would be retained because it's bad for the students to drop out. And the ones that were likely to drop out are first generation low income. And as you all know, at a time when there's still uncertainty in the market, they're best off making sure that they get that degree. And so again, the numbers look very good on all of these. We told you that for this year, our goal would be to hold steady because none of us knew how the pandemic would be. So on the colors, if you see green, it means we've made significant progress. In fact, in a couple of them, we've actually already met our goals for year end, and we weren't sandbagging. This was our best estimate, but it tells me we can have even more stretch goals perhaps. My team is getting nervous, but that's how I would interpret it. So if you see amber, we're very much on track, but we're not done there. And if you see mixed colors, I'll talk to you about that too, where we are. On students, the area I want to talk about is access to mental health. That's something that's very important. And I'm pleased to tell you that Dr. Tony Ganzel, Dr. Phil Brassoud, I've asked them to look at comprehensive view of health, physical, mental, how are we doing? And it's not just students. I know this says students, that's our number one area of focus, but faculty and staff as well. We've invested in more counselors. We are doing that review. We'll come back and talk to you about the progress we've made there. And this is a green. Thank you to Beth Willie and in Beth Bame's shop and others. We have embedded our digital learning certification into the Cardinal Core as of spring 2021. And what this means is that in 4 years, hopefully every single student who graduates from the University of Louisville will automatically have digital certification. So very pleased to see that. On Great Place to Work, I wanted to bring a couple of things to your attention. We do administer a couple of different modules each year. So in fall 2018, our Office of Institutional Research administered a survey, and we are going to be repeating that in March 2021. And then in 2019, another module was sent out to our faculty and staff. I'll send you details about these. But the big news, I would say, is that between FY18 and FY20, so there was one done FY18 and 20, there's a question that asks about your overall evaluation of the university and your experience of working here. That went up from 2.98 to 3.89, but the participation is not very high at all. It was about 20% who participated. So that's why it's an amber. I told you that for 22, our goal is to have a 4.0 evaluation and have 40% participation in the survey. So it's something we're working on. The green, I do want to talk to you about, we've launched our Employee Success Center. Very important for our staff in particular to see career pathing and investing in them. Brian Buford is heading that up. In February, we're going to do a big official launch, but they're already doing a lot of activities. And in February, we'll have Simon Sinek speak. So I'm very excited about that, to help everybody think about what is their why and how are they contributing to the larger purpose. IT, again, we've made investments. I've told you before that this is an area where UFL is significantly behind its peers, and great thank yous to Rehan Khan and the whole IT team. They have been incredible. They've had to do a lot and they've done it well. We need to invest in that area. We've filled key leadership positions, and as you know, we have our provost, Dr. Lori Gonzalez, starting in April. And in March, she'll be here so that Beth and she can have a month of transition. And I'm delighted that Beth will be going back to her role as Dean of Graduate Studies. And so we will celebrate her in March, as I told you. General Counsel, again, we had a successful search. I'm delighted to announce that Angela Curry will be starting her role again in April as our new GC. I'm pleased to tell you that Tom has agreed to stay on to help us with the transition and to wrap up some projects. So again, very grateful for that as well. And Jasmine Ferrier, these were the 3 areas that we wanted to do. as VP of Advancement, took over in August and is doing a great job. And I'm excited to keep you posted on how that goes. I really want to thank the search committees. This is a lot of work. And the search committees that headed these all up and made it happen, very grateful for. On the invest, Dan has already talked to you about where we are on liquidity and days of cash on hand and research expenditure. So I would like to tell you that on our grand challenges, we identified 3 grand challenges, as you know, and that is empowering our communities, advancing our health, and engineering our future. We are working closely with several corporate and foundation partners and hope to have some progress to report to you as the year goes on. The brand campaign, you've seen where we are in terms of moving ahead. I would like to take a moment and talk about our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, especially the anti-racism agenda. What does it mean and why is this important? There's many definitions out there, but the one that I really like is by Ibram Kendi, who says that a racist idea is simply an idea that suggests one racial group is inferior to or superior to another racial group. That's it. And so racist ideas would be saying that any inferiority or superiority of one group over another is attributable to their race. An anti-racist idea then is the idea that race does not confer any inherent inferiority or superiority to a group. And to address this, and certainly the social justice concerns over the summer that continue and will continue this, until we figure out a way to address this in a meaningful way. I am firmly convinced that taking the lead on this will position UFL for success for all of our students, all of our faculty, all of our staff. So one thing we started on, and if you would go to the next slide, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the cardinal anti-racism agenda. Wanted to tell you where we are with this anti-racism agenda. I will tell you that early on, the temptation would be to say we'll do these 5 things and we're done. And talking to our community, it quickly became apparent that this is not a problem that happened overnight, and this is not an issue we can tackle overnight. We need to be intentional and we need to be systematic. So to craft that roadmap to an anti-racist future, I asked our commission, and that commission has been at UFL for over a decade for sure, the Commission on Diversity and Racial Equality, that's CODRA, to take the lead. This is a group that has more than 100 stakeholders involved. They've been meeting since the fall, and they will have a final report to me sometime this semester. Once I do, I will have them come and present it to you. The areas that they're looking at, and I won't go through every single one of them because I don't know how the final report will be put together, but some of the areas that they're looking at are things like policies and practices at UFL. What are our policies and procedures? Our Red Book, our HR policy, our faculty tenure and promotion. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm hearing echo. Can you all hear me okay? All right, thank you. And so they're reviewing these, and JCPS used a particular lens of racial equity analysis protocol, or REAP. And I don't know if that's what our team will recommend, but they're reviewing how do we look at our policies, how do we look at our culture and mindset, providing funds to support the research, leadership responsibility. How are we doing as leaders? Are we actually coaching them? Are we training them to make sure that they're actively engaged in creating a positive workforce and making sure that they do not tolerate racism? Presence. This is in our recruitment, our enrollment, our retention, what are we doing to make sure we have a diverse student body and that faculty and staff, it's not just students. So this is the areas, this is the starting point, just like our strategic plan. I shared with you how it was so many different groups that came together and developed this. So that's what I wanted to share with you. So that working on drafting the report, once we have the final report and action plan, that will be the beginning of our work. As you can see from the draft items I've shared with you, this is very much like the strategic plan. It'll guide our work for years to come. There are two comments I would like to make before I conclude on this topic. First of all, my commitment to this work of diversity, equity, and inclusion did not begin at the University of Louisville. I'm one of those who can tell you that I started seriously on this work in 1999. So from the Ohio State University to the University of Kansas, and there are many of you who interviewed me, and I thank you for this opportunity. If you recall, even when I was interviewed, I told you that this is important to me, and that's one of the main reasons I was attracted to the University of Louisville. The second thing I would like to say is that universities truly talk a great deal about this, but they are behind most businesses. I'm someone who talks about the nobility of business, and I believe in it. And it is the sad truth that we don't provide the support that most businesses do for employee resource groups and others. So in terms of this work, over 18 months ago, I signed on as an early signatory among higher education institutions to the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. That's a group that was started by the CEO of PwC, Tim Ryan. And my whole senior leadership team took this pledge that we will make it our business to make sure that we're building teams where everyone can reach their potential. And I thought it would be helpful for people to hear what is happening in the world of business, that this is not some idea that only higher education is thinking about. And in fact, after I talk about this, hopefully you will see that this anti-racism agenda is the right thing to do, not just for our students of color. Our majority white students will actually be more competitive in the workplace because businesses are looking at who are we hiring? Are these the students who can thrive in a multicultural workspace? So not a lot of examples, Madam Chair, and I know many of these you're familiar with, but I'd like to quickly talk to you. If you go to the CEO Action Forum, you can see what all of these businesses are doing. Accenture, their commitment to transparency in their diversity data. They're publicly sharing their HR demographic data to hold themselves publicly accountable. American Airlines, they recognize that not all their leaders or frontline managers have the diversity and inclusion skills necessary to be competitive. So they have an inclusion summit to provide that training to all supervisors across the organization. The Cleveland Clinic, focusing on intentional succession planning processes. So especially around diversity, so that 10 years from now, they don't have to say, why do we not have the diversity we seek in our leadership ranks? Cisco, the diverse representation framework to identify, hire, retain, and promote diverse talent. And I will say that EY, that is doing so much of the diversity work here, they actually annually train newly promoted managers and senior managers. Annual training on implicit association, unconscious bias, and how to be better leaders. And right here in our backyard, I am immensely inspired by Bruce Broussard and his leadership at Humana. They recognized that high-performing diverse talent was leaving before they were promoted to the director level. So they launched a talent-ready pipeline to proactively engage these talented employees. And as a result of the engagement is shared with the company's Inclusion and Diversity Council, and that is chaired by the CEO. I could go on and on with P&G, but I would strongly encourage people to look at that CEO Action Forum and see the pledges that people are making and why they are moving this way. Madam Chair, I guess the reason I would say that is, again, if you look at the results, whether it's by Catalyst or by other organizations, diversity of perspectives, that's what is incredibly important. So we must have diversity of ideas, diversity of perspectives, diversity of life experiences, actually shows that the company is more viable, sustainable, more profitable. So I really believe this is important for all of our students. So could we go to the next slide? So back again to the DEI slide, I thought I would talk to you about what the anti-racism agenda is and how we propose to move forward. We have already started implicit bias training for all search committee members. And the reason it's not fully green is that we've launched it, but we need to evaluate and see how we're doing. West Louisville, what we are doing in the community, there's a lot of work done, but you will hear from Ralph on what more we think we need to be doing, etc. So that's a little bit about where we are, what we are doing. Dr. Faye Jones, in terms of the diversification of faculty, staff, and administration, our DEI team, you heard mention of Marian Vassar, it's Diane Whitlock, all of the other members of the team. They are conducting virtual meetings with faculty of color and trying to do monthly meetings to say, what are issues? Why do we lose you? How do we get you to stay? How can we make the culture more inclusive? And of course, I've already mentioned our Culture and Equity Center. I'm hoping that it makes a big difference to our students. This is my mid-year progress report. I wanted to show you the scorecard and kind of give you an assessment, my assessment of where things stand. And I want to thank you for your support. And I'm very, very proud of our team. So we make strides, we move forward. And that's that part of the report. I still have 2 more small things to take care of, or not so small, but not such long presentations. But I would really like to see if there are any questions or comments from the board.
Apparently not. Very thorough.
Thank you so much. With that, Madam Chair, I have 2 more items of business, if you wouldn't mind. One is naming 2 spaces on campus. A request has been made first to name the renovated Infrastructure Structural Testing Lab in the Speed School of Engineering. And this remodeled structural lab is to support both teaching and research. And we'd like to name it in honor of Bernie Dollum, who passed in 2018. But he gifted more than $2 million to the UFL Speed School over his lifetime. Mr. Dollum obtained his Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering in '51, his Master's of Science in Civil Engineering in 1972, both from our university. He was a member of the President's Council, past president of the Speed School Alumni Foundation. He received the Speed School's Professional Award for Engineering and was recognized for career accomplishment with the Distinguished Alumnus Award in 1988, and was honored by UFL with an honorary Doctor of Science degree in 1996. In '94, he made $1 million gift to the Speed School to establish the Johnny Here Jr. Faculty Scholar Fund. And everything I've heard, I did not have the great pleasure of getting to know this alum, but it would be a fitting tribute to somebody who made a big difference in the life of this university. So unless the board has any objections, I would like to go forward with naming the lab the Dollum Infrastructure Structural Testing Lab. Would you like me to cover the second naming opportunity and you can say yay or nay to both?
Need our approval, do they, Neely? But I think it's important for people to know that they're happening and why.
That's right. Okay, just, it was informational, but if there are concerns, I would like to know. Okay. I've already seen somebody say a fitting tribute to a great man, so thank you. I do agree. The second designation was requested to name a space that's going to be renovated in the basement of the dental school. It's currently used for storage and as a student lounge, but it will be renovated to be updated, student commons and study space. And very, very generous donors have given us a $150,000 gift to fully fund all the renovation costs. And they would like to name the space after a retired associate dean. So they'd like to honor a professor by naming this in his name. So it would be the Dr. Woody Currens space. And so unless the board has any objections, I will name this the Dr. Woody Currens Student Success and Wellness Center. And this is being provided by the McGuinn family. So I just love it when people honor faculty that have made an impact. I know this would mean a lot. So that's the other naming opportunity that I wanted to share with you.
Excellent.
And lastly, I wanted to share with you all two recent appointments. One, a university ambassador and a director of industry partnerships. Both actually come from our strategic plan. In terms of keeping us connected with the community, I am so thrilled that Daryl Griffith joined us in November of last year as an ambassador for the university. And the title is because Daryl is working with us on achieving the university's goals in the strategic plan, the cardinal anti-racism agenda, and the grand challenges. He's working closely with Vince in athletics and with Jasmine in advancement. And Daryl really, the word ambassador is perfect because he's assisting us in our alumni relations to foster stronger relationships. And he's a role model and a mentor for young people in this community. I know you all know him very well, but I just wanted to tell you how glad I am that he's back home where he belongs. And the second one also comes out of our strategic planning document. We have hired David Calzi to be our new director of industry, business and industry partnerships. And he will begin on February 1. He will report directly to our EVP for research and innovation and work closely with me. And Dave in this role will be the chief liaison to industry, corporate, business, military, education partners. And his responsibility will be to initiate, build, maintain, expand partnerships. People have talked about a front door to the university. So if somebody needs to navigate the University of Louisville, David Calzi is well known and trusted in the community, and he would help to make those connections. So very excited because Calzi being on board will allow us to advance the mission of the university and our grand challenges and articulate the cardinal principles of the university. So I hope you will all join me in welcoming Daryl and Dave to our team. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Well, that was a lot of exciting stuff. So I think, Neely, the only thing that's left today, and I don't know why I'm getting an echo, hope it's not bothering you all, is the report of the chair. Does anybody have anything else they want to ask Neely or bring up before we conclude? Not hearing anything, I just want to again express my appreciation to all of you, Neely, the team, for getting us through this last year and position us, I think, to have a very successful 2021. And I wish you all good health. And that concludes my report. So having no other business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.